Hello, hello, and welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Zenith Glow Astrology broadcast. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Christina, and I am an astrologer. Go figure. Yeah, thank you for being here. Today we are going to be talking about the upcoming full moon in Leo. And I've gone ahead and done what I did for my previous moon video, which was the new moon in Aquarius, which at the time of this recording we just had a couple of days ago. At that time when I recorded that video, what I decided to share with you all was a tarot reading that I had conducted for the new moon. And this is something that I do. This is one of the ways that I operate as an astrologer. I kind of pool different resources together. And of course, I'm looking at the astrology and using my left brain and all that stuff, but I'm also pulling on my intuition and looking at the symbolism. And I find that it actually brings in a lot more depth to the reading. So we're going to do that again. I did another reading for the full moon in Leo coming up, and we're going to look at what the dynamics of the full moon in Leo are astrologically, and then we're going to look at the reading that I conducted for this particular lunar event. Now, before we get into that, let's get a little bit of business out of the way. Once again, my name is Christina. I run Zenith Glow Astrology. This is my YouTube channel. Please consider liking and subscribing because that really supports me. Please share this video widely with anyone if that resonates in your heart. You can also find me on Truth Social. I'm on Instagram and I'm on X, and I will post links. I'm also going to post this video on Spotify, and you can also subscribe to me on Substack. If it feels right in your heart, I am open to receiving donations, and I will put a link for that below. And then, very last, you can also book a reading with me if it feels like something you want to do. I would love to do a reading for you. You can go to my website, zenithglowastrology.com, and you can book a reading directly on my website. Okay, we got all the business stuff out of the way, guys. So let's go ahead and get going. Let's talk about this upcoming full moon in Leo. So, first and foremost, this full moon will be on February 12th, and it's going to be at 1:53 p.m. Universal Time, and it will be occurring at 24 degrees 5 minutes of Leo. Okay? So, something to keep in mind whenever we have big transits or full moons, new moons, that type of thing, you can pay attention to what degree they are occurring at, because if you have planets in your natal chart or major angles like your rising sign or your midheaven, if they are also lying within a few degrees of whatever the transit or the full moon is at, you can tell, like, hey, this is going to affect me. I mean, we're always affected by all the transits on some level, but when we have them make contact with points in our personal charts, we feel it very acutely. And then you can also look at the house that it is occurring in. Like, let's say you had your sun at 24 degrees of Leo or something like that, and maybe it's in your third house. It would give you an idea, it would give you more information about how you're going to be impacted by the full moon, and the third house would give you that little piece of the puzzle to let you know, hey, this area of my life is going to come into focus at this time. So just a little Astro 101 stuff there for you. So let's go ahead and dive into this event that's coming up. There's been a lot going on, hasn't there? The Aquarius new moon. How are you guys doing? How did that go for you? I have to tell you, once again, I was completely sidelined by my own reading of that event. I did this reading on it, I don't even remember, like a week or two before the event. And, right as it was approaching, all the things I talked about started happening to me, but I wasn't like consciously thinking about that. Like a lot of the time, that's kind of how things go. We read horoscopes or we watch astrology forecasts, and maybe it's there somewhere in the back of our mind, but when we're in the moment and we're experiencing things, I personally don't always think like, oh, yep, this is happening. I knew it was going to happen. This is exactly, oftentimes it'll happen. I'll have the emotional experience of it. And then afterwards, I reflect and I go, oh, yeah, that's what I talked about. Whoa. So that happened to me. It is happening to me. It's still ongoing. And yeah, changes, a lot of changes. And just like I talked about with that Aquarius new moon connecting to the former full moon in Cancer and having all of those emotional tides kind of rise up within us, and how we had to kind of bridge into this new portal window through those emotions and kind of deal with any residual themes or issues that just hadn't fully quite been dealt with at the full moon. Yeah, that all was happening for me, and it's profound and it's crazy, and my entire life is changing. And I will tell you all about it some other time, but right now I'm still in process. And yeah, we'll get into it when I'm kind of like on the other side of things. But for now, let me just say this has not been easy energy, which I think I said that in my reading. It's not going to be easy, but it is good. And it is helping to shift us into our higher timeline and really get us into alignment with our most authentic, organic selves. So, to that end, let's look at the Leo full moon that's coming up here. And once again, I'm kind of new to all the techie stuff, so bear with me. We're going to make myself a little bit smaller here. And, ooh, look at all my skills, you guys. There's probably way better ways to do this stuff, but I'm trying. It's good though. At least you can see it and, we can all look at this together. So, I created a chart for the Leo full moon. Now, once again, ignore the houses. This isn't, your personal chart. It's not, the houses don't have any relevance here. What we are paying attention to are the planets and the signs and their relationship to each other. So, first and foremost, we have the sun and the moon. And in this chart, it's showing them at 24 degrees 6 minutes. But I think technically the full moon started at 24 degrees 5 minutes. And really, that's like splitting hairs and it doesn't matter. But I'm just mentioning it in case you noticed that and you're like, hey, wait a minute. I thought she said 5 minutes. So, yeah, sun and moon opposite each other. That is what a full moon is, first and foremost. Now, the sun itself is also conjunct in a very tight conjunction with goddess asteroid Ceres and Mercury in Aquarius at the time of the full moon. It's also technically conjunct with Chariklo, a little looser conjunction, but she's still kind of in the mix. And again, Chariklo is the wounded healer. If you're not sure, or if you're unfamiliar with the asteroid goddesses, Ceres is a big one. She's very connected to Virgo energy, and she's also connected to Scorpio energy, and she really has very like similar role to Pluto in a lot of ways, except she's a more feminine version and it's more about becoming whole in yourself. But one of the things that Ceres helps us do is she helps us to release things that are no longer serving us, especially things that are related to grief and loss. Like, it's tied into who you are as an individual, and what you need to feel whole in yourself. And sometimes we hold on to things thinking that we want them. And then it turns out that those things can't be held on to for one reason or another. And we go through this process of grief and loss. But when we embrace that process, we are able to be sort of reborn. You can see how there's that Pluto Scorpio energy kind of in her traits. And yeah, and through that like release and allowing the grief to flow and allowing us to really connect with ourselves, we're able to become whole again, despite whatever it is that we've lost. And that can relate to a lot of different things. And then Ceres is also the goddess of the harvest. So she has a lot to do with, yeah, just that process. What is it in the Bible? It says like separating the wheat from the chaff. It's kind of that process as well, like figuring out what do we want to harvest, but then also recognizing that the wheat needs the chaff, right? The wheat needs the chaff to be able to grow because it helps protect the wheat while it is growing. But then when we come to harvest time, it's time to let the chaff go. And so again, it's just really about being okay with releasing and letting things go that aren't serving us, and then really getting to like the wholeness, the nourishment, and what is what we are seeking, right? In like a symbolic way, the wheat. So anyway, that's just a little bit about Ceres. We could talk about her for hours. And then of course, Mercury is how we think and what we perceive and how we communicate, and it's our conscious, logical, rational mind. Okay, so sun and moon are opposite of each other, as with every full moon. And you'll notice if you look at this chart that we have the sun and the moon forming this red triangle. And this third point in this configuration is Uranus, Uranus in Taurus. And Uranus is actually newly direct. It just went direct right after the new moon in Aquarius. So at the time of the full moon, it'll be like picking up speed again and kind of getting back into its normal rhythm. But it's forward movement again. So we're not going through the retrograde underworld anymore. We are emerged from the cave, and we are moving forward. We've got new insights, new ahas, clarity. We're moving forward. And it is conjunct with Mary Magdalena still, bringing in these Taurus themes. So, red triangle, what does that mean? Well, that is a T-square in astrology. So that means that not only are the sun and moon opposite of each other, which in and of itself is a tense configuration. And that's the reason why people always say, like, people are crazy at full moons or very emotional at full moons. It's because that opposition aspect has tension in it, and the sun is illuminating the moon. And the moon is like our unconscious self, and it's our emotions, and it's our fears, and all kinds of stuff. And the sun is our consciousness. And so when they oppose each other, suddenly the moon becomes full, and we can see things for what they are. And a lot of the time, what that does is it brings up emotions. And so, hence, you get a lot of people that are kind of loony, right? Around the full moon, because they have all these emotions that are coming up, and a lot of people don't know how to deal with it. So they kind of just project and lash out. But, when you do the self work and you really go into yourself and try to investigate and give yourself healing and space, there's some really beautiful things that can happen at full moons. And full moons themselves symbolize harvest time. So again, having Ceres in the mix there's kind of like this extra harvest energy going on. Something is being harvested now. So tension, full moon the moon and the sun, tension, opposite. But then you have each of them squaring Uranus. This is called a T-square. And it is very tight. It is very tense. It is a lot of conflicting energy. It's like all the planets are gridlocked and they all want different things and they can't agree on what they want. But remember, if you've ever read any of my astrology articles, you know that I talk about dynamic aspects, which is a modern term for hard aspects in astrology, aka the challenging ones. Whenever we have dynamic aspects in astrology, there is so much more potential for growth and opportunity that lies within the tension if we're willing to roll up our sleeves and dig into it. So that is exactly what is true of this T-square, and the key to resolving the tension of the T-square lies in the apex planet, which in our case is Uranus. I also want to throw out that, the sun is in Aquarius, well, Uranus rules Aquarius. So very intense Uranian energy at the time of this full moon. And I just want to mention that, Uranus is a lot like the Tower card in the tarot. It has this very jolting, sudden, shocking kind of energy because Uranus is the planet of freedom and truth and authenticity. And what it does is it serves us by deconditioning all the ways that we have become crystallized or stuck or overly rigid within ourselves. Saturn serves this purpose where it helps us develop that rigidity as a means of creating a strong foundation for ourselves. We need to have security, and you can't be secure if you're like, whoa, on a rocky foundation. So it's good to have that Saturn stuff come in and develop this firm foundation. And so we set definitions and we create boundaries and there's rules and all this stuff that Saturn creates. But what happens is eventually we become overly rigid, overly crystallized. And suddenly we're not really living in alignment with our own authenticity anymore because we're constantly changing, right? And if Saturn is making things stay the same, if it's the planet of stability, then that's a contradiction. We can't really change if we're overly rigid, overly crystallized. And so Uranus wants us to be free, like totally uninhibited, completely free to be ourselves. And it wants us to experience the truth, the illumination, the insight, the spiritual growth that comes from being completely free and completely true to yourself. And so Uranus serves the purpose of helping us break out of those crystallized patterns. And how does it do this? Well, it's not very gentle. It doesn't care. It does not care about your comfort level, and it doesn't care about your fears. It wants you to break free from all of those things if they are restricting your growth. It's all about growing and having the freedom to grow. So Uranus will often deliver characteristic flashes of insight. That's one of the strong things that people have noted about Uranian transits is you'll start to get these like flashes in your mind, and they're very like fast, and sometimes they're non-linear, and so they don't like make sense. You'll just like, what was that? Like I just had a vision or just this idea popped into my head. I don't even know where that came from. Or I just had like I caught myself in a daydream and I was thinking about what if my life were like this? It does that. It brings new insights, new ideas, and it shows us these glimpses of what we could be like, what our life could be like if it were different in such and such way. And then usually we kind of like put the Uranus stuff aside because, again, a lot of the time it comes out of nowhere and it's sort of nonlinear and it doesn't totally make sense to us. It takes time for that like really high frequency spiritual Uranian perspective to get condensed and ordered in a way that makes sense to our logical mind via Mercury. Okay, so it's Mercury's job to kind of take all the information from Uranus and like transcribe it in a way that's going to make sense to us. And so that's kind of the nature of Uranian transits. So, and I'm probably going into too much detail here, but I just wanted to bring this up because when there are squares like this to a planet such as Uranus at a time such as now, where it's ruling the sun's position and where it just went direct, we just had a new moon in Aquarius, that portal opened, we're experiencing a timeline shift. Uranus is changing signs this year. This is like, I mean, and it's not going to station in Gemini yet. It will dip back into Taurus one more time, but this is like it's reaching its final kind of crescendo in Taurus. So we're getting an intensification of the themes that it has delivered to us in Taurus. And what does Taurus have to do? What does it have to do with? Sorry, I'm like talking so fast that I'm not even finishing my sentences. What does Taurus have to do with? Well, on the one hand, it is, very 3D stuff like physical security, survival, how I earn money, the things that I own. But on a deeper level, Taurus is about self-worth. And it is about what we value. And it is about what we need in order to feel safe and secure in ourselves. So, Uranus has been teaching us these things since it's been transiting through this sign. And at the time of this full moon, we have this juxtaposition between my desires, the sun, and maybe like my ideas, Mercury, and Ceres, like what I want to harvest. And then we have the moon in Leo, which is like how I feel and how I want to create and what makes me feel good, what makes me feel special. And those things are squaring Uranus, and Uranus is like, hey, you might want all that stuff, but you care too much what other people think about you, as an example. So, are you really acting in alignment with your values? Are you really valuing yourself? Is the core of all of your endeavors this baseline of self worth? Is it really about you? So, whew, there's a lot going on there. Okay, just a couple other things I want to talk about before we get to the tarot reading part of it. Um, so we still have this configuration going on between Saturn and Mars at the time of this full moon. Saturn and Mars are trine with each other. They were already in a trine at the new moon in Aquarius, but it wasn't quite as exact. It's more exact now. And Mars will be going direct, I believe, on February 23rd. So it's starting to slow down in its retrograde cycle at this point. And it's getting close to the end. So we're going to probably feel an intensification with Mars. And where is Mars? It's in Cancer. And where did we have that crazy full moon recently where we had all this emotional release? It was in Cancer. So, whatever was introduced at that full moon, which was very pivotal and very important for setting the tone for this year for us, it's being kind of stirred up now. And Saturn is really wanting us to investigate our emotional security and what we desire in order to create emotional security. And that kind of ties in with this Uranian Taurus stuff, right? And all those planets are sextile to each other. So, kind of makes sense. At this time, we also still have the North Node conjunct with Neptune, which means that it is opposite of the South Node in Virgo. And at the same time as that, and I'm not going to get into all of this, I'm just kind of mentioning it for you to sort of chew on, if you will, if you want to. So the South Node is at 27 degrees of Virgo at the time of the full moon. It is trine with Pallas Athena in Capricorn. And Pallas Athena is conjunct with Pluto in out of sign conjunction. Pallas Athena is at 28 degrees of Capricorn and Pluto is at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So they're kind of bridging together those two signs. All right, something to think about. Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom. I talked about her a lot recently in my snake excursions video. So I highly recommend you check that out if you want to learn a little bit more about her and about shadow work and different things that are going on this year related to snakes. So we have kind of like this higher wisdom, and Pluto is rebirth, right? So, wow, are we somehow transforming our wisdom, like what we know, our personal authority, Capricorn, and then also Aquarius, like forward thinking, freedom, individuality? Like there's something going on there, right? That's being transformed. And then Pallas Athena slash Pluto is sextile with Neptune in the North Node. Neptune and the North Node conjunct each other in Pisces. I mean, that is like our spiritual mission, right? It's what we came here to do. So yeah, really, really light stuff going on here. And then Neptune and the North Node are actually trine with Juno. Again, watch the snake excursions video. I talk about Juno and her importance coming up in the next few months. But Juno is the twin flame. So, and the twin flame can be a physical twin flame counterpart that you have here on Earth, like a partnership, but it can also be your relationship with your higher twin flame self. So, kind of uniting and merging with yourself. Juno's in Scorpio, transformation. So, and then, yes, so Juno is trine with Neptune slash the North Node. Pallas Athena is trine with the South Node in Virgo. And then the South Node in Virgo is sextile with Juno. Juno is sextile with Pallas Athena. Pallas Athena is sextile with Neptune in the North Node. All those things are connected at this time. So, just something to kind of hold in your conscious awareness. Okay, this is all the astrological hoo ha. Let's go ahead and get into the tarot reading that I did. All right, so we're gonna censor that. Not censor it, but we're gonna turn it off so that we can look at this. Okay. Woo, woo, woo. This is the tarot reading that I did. Ah, there's all the cards that I pulled, and we're going to break it down. But once again, I pull a significator card, which you can see at the top. That tells me what is the overarching theme of this event. What are we looking at? Like, if you could tell me in like one sentence, what is this about? That is what it is about. And then the rest of the cards are really there just to kind of give additional messages and kind of flesh out that significator card a bit more. Okay, so the significator card. The poet. Wow. Yeah, I had all kinds of things coming to me as I was pondering this card. Um, it's not a light and airy kind of card, you know. Poets are intense. Poets are serious, you know. And yeah, and this card is number 7, right? So 7 is all about investigation and enlightenment and knowledge and learning, expanded learning and truth. That makes so much sense, right? Aquarius, Uranus. Um, but yeah, I was thinking about it. What do poets do? What is it about poets that's important? Poets are they're like witnesses. They are observers. They really observe reality and then they make connections between things that normally wouldn't seem connected. You know, whether you're observing nature or actually a lot of poets write about nature, but you know, they really go into the shadow too. And they find a way to bridge the shadow and the light, don't they? Because even when you're reading a poem that's about something really sad, like Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe, uh, and really like anything by Edgar Allan Poe is like sad or dark. Uh, but yeah, when you read something like that, it's like it's sad and it touches your emotions and it really digs deep, but it's also beautiful, right? And it also kind of inspires us and brings us this sort of healing energy. And that's what poets do, right? They sort of bridge together the dark and the light. And I think it's interesting that this card shows like hands holding a white orb. Doesn't it look like a full moon? So interesting. And it's kind of emerging from the shadows holding this full moon. And then we have a lot of blue and orange in the card, which tells me that there's a lot going on right now with communication, which makes sense because, you know, we have Mercury conjunct the sun and they're in the sign of Aquarius, which is an air sign. And then also the third eye, the pineal gland. So, kind of getting that intuition, that higher insight makes sense when you think about Neptune conjunct the North Node, as well as Saturn, all in Pisces, all active very much at the time of this full moon. And then we have orange, which is the sacral chakra. And wow, there's a lot of, obviously, there's a lot of creativity in the sacral chakra. There's a lot of emotion in there too, though. We always think about the heart chakra when we think about emotions, which is valid. You know, there's a lot of emotion there. But we also carry a lot of emotions in our sacral chakra. And a lot of the time, those emotions are like more buried. Like they're not quite as obvious to us. They're things that we carry forward from past lives or from childhood. They're things that really tie into our sense of self worth, positively or negatively, one way or the other. They really tie into our sense of self worth and what makes us feel safe and what makes us feel secure in ourselves. Because in order to be able to create, right, the sacral chakra is kind of like in the womb space. Whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Symbolically, that's like your creative center. Uh, when we want to create something, we have to be doing it from this place of self love, right? Because if we're not, then what we are creating, one, it doesn't have lasting power, and two, it's not really authentic because then we're creating for other people. And I'm not saying that you can't create for other people, of course, like there's this beautiful thing about taking your creativity and giving it to others, gifting it, but it has to start with yourself. right? It has to come from you, and it has to be in alignment with your vibration, your essence. And so, yeah, wow. Sorry, I'm probably going again way into too much detail. Um, but that's the kind of theme that is coming up for us at the time of this full moon. Very deep, deep healing at the very deepest levels. Am I speaking my truth from a place of authenticity within myself? You can't see me. I'm like rubbing my sacral chakra area right now. Uh, but yes, am I speaking my truth? Am I seeing myself clearly? Am I seeing the world clearly? Am I creating from that place of alignment within myself where I'm seeing and speaking clearly and then birthing forward from this place of authenticity? And again, because we're talking about Uranus, we're talking about and the sun and the moon, we're talking about something is going to be illuminated for us at this time. This is the time of the harvest. Ceres is there and she's saying, hey, we need to separate the wheat from the chaff. It is time to harvest, which means you're only going to take with you what serves you. It is now time to release and let go of what is not serving you. So, easy peasy. So some other cards that I pulled. First of all, I've got this fire rooster. Wow. Again, this just makes me think of Uranus because it's this very I don't know, roosters are just very I'm gonna do what I want. And they have this very forward, aggressive, and not even aggressive, just powerful energy, self-possessed energy, which kind of reminds me a little bit of that Taurus stuff. And we have a new dawn. The rooster announces the emergence of the dawn, right? So new beginning, first of all, at the time of this full moon. And I know we like to think of new moons as new beginnings, but of course, whenever we have an ending, we have a new beginning, right? They're intrinsically tied together. So something is birthed, right? New moons harvest, or excuse me, full moons harvest. Something is birthed at the time of this full moon, and it might come through some sort of higher spiritual illumination. And again, this activation of the throat chakra. Am I speaking my truth? That is going to be highlighted at the time of this full moon. We also have these two cards, which very much make me think about Taurus again, solitude and money. Both of those are very Taurian kind of themes. Money obviously is security and it's what you own and it's how you support yourself in the 3D so that you can feel safe and alive. And then we have solitude. Taurus likes to be around other people that are calm. It is an earth sign, so it doesn't want a lot of drama or overexcitement, but it does like to be with other people. It's ruled by Venus. It likes to have relationships with people. It likes to feel in harmony, but the highest expression of Taurus is totally fine being on its own. And it also really likes to be alone. Okay. And I think also part of this solitude card, again, is really about digging into our own vibration. Who am I on the inside? What do I feel? What makes me feel safe? When am I happiest? When I'm alone and I'm just in my zone and I'm feeling good about myself and I'm feeling safe and secure. How does that feel? And then when I come into contact with the world, when I start to share myself with the world, are those two energies matching? Are my relationships supporting that energy? Because each of us has this baseline energy, which is the truth of our soul. And then we come into this world and we start getting layered on with all these conditions, right? Via Saturn and society and all that. And we adopt those conditions in order to fit in, which we have to do to a certain degree. But especially as adults, we often layer on so much that we can't find that baseline anymore. And so I think this full moon is really about getting in touch with that baseline core essence of who we are and figuring out what makes me happy? What do I value? What do I want to embody in my life? And what do I need to feel safe And what do I need to feel authentic? And what do I need to value myself, to feel self-worth? So now, on the one hand, we could say, like from a more 3D level, maybe there's some kind of manifestation coming to fruition related to money or security or opportunity. And that could be true too. This can show up in a lot of ways. But I think like the overarching message relates to this self-worth stuff, right? Because we can't cultivate abundance unless we have self-worth. And that is true. Our abundance and what we earn in the world directly ties into what we value and how we value ourselves. So I also have these two cards here. And again, beautiful, beautiful cards. The focus card, again, makes me think about Uranus. It is, really about, like I said, Uranus is higher mind, it's higher insight, and it's kind of like coming in and zapping us with truth. And when we're zapped like that, we can't help but become hyper focused on whatever that truth is. And I think that's what's happening at the time of this full moon. Again, full moon's illumination, like something is coming into illumination for us to focus on. And this card is also really about spiritual attainment because we have the kind of the snowy mountaintop. The snowy mountaintop is sort of like symbolic of spiritual purity and aspiration. And it's about the work that we do to get there. And if we were to talk about purity, we could say, like, that purity is really, again, about authenticity. So, spiritual authenticity, getting into alignment with our spiritual aspirations, our mission, Neptune conjunct the North Node, and what do we need to focus on in order to bring those things into fruition for ourselves? At the same time, we have this other card, really beautiful. Obviously, it reminds me a lot of this Pisces energy. And this makes me think about the Saturn trine Mars aspect going on now. Inner peace. What do we need? And actually, you know what? It reminds me of Taurus as well, because Taurus is very much about inner peace. If you've ever seen that old cartoon about Ferdinand the Bull, Ferdinand the Bull. The matadors, they wanted him to fight. They wanted him to be a bull that he could like get stirred up and angry and fight. Ferdinand didn't want that. He just wanted to sit in the field and smell the flowers. He was totally zen and chill. And that's all Ferdinand wanted was this inner peace, right? And to each of us, that means something different, but that idea, that symbol of it is the same. And so, again, I think at the time of this full moon, this is coming into illumination for us. What do I need to feel a sense of inner peace? What do I need to let go of? And what do I need to cultivate more of in my life? So, yeah. Okay, and then we have our final cards here. So I pulled a couple of astrology cards to sort of focus, what do we need to pay attention to that's especially important at this time? Well, we have Chiron. Huh. And Chiron is at 19 degrees of Aries at the time of this full moon. Now, it is very loosely sextile with Jupiter in Gemini. But Jupiter recently went direct by the time we have this full moon. It recently went direct. So they're actually in a waxing sextile at the time of this full moon. And that's after Jupiter's retrograde cycle. So there's some kind of healing that is coming into focus, coming into fruition through this Jupiter and Chiron aspect. And Jupiter is about opportunity, right? Not it's about wisdom and truth and speaking our truth, again being in Gemini, uh, and all of that, and our perception and all of that. But it's also about um, opportunity, right? Jupiter will deliver us opportunities. It's up to us to seize them. So we have an opportunity for healing at the time of this full moon. And Chiron is going to be very active. So I'm thinking that there is a lot of transformation going on for us at this time. And there is a lot of release happening. There are things that we need to let go of that we have been holding on to maybe for years and years, maybe forever, maybe going into past lives. I mean, It could be like really deep-seated stuff. And Chiron, it's the wounded healer. So it digs up the wound, it shows us what we need to heal. And the wound is the medicine, right? The poison is the cure. So we need to go deep into ourselves and really figure out what it is that we need to heal ourselves. And oftentimes, that healing process is simply observing the poet and self acceptance. You know, it's like the poet sees the darkness in the world and he doesn't try to change it. He simply describes it and connects it to his personal experience. And within that, we find some kind of a healing, right? We find some kind of beauty. So, deep stuff going on. Okay. The other astrology card that I got was the South Node. Now, I did talk about the South Node a little bit, but yeah, that is also coming into effect at this time now. South Node is opposite, obviously, of North Node, but North Node is conjunct with Neptune. And as I described, South Node is sextile with Juno, and it's trine with Pallas Athena, which is conjunct with Pluto at the time of this full moon. So we have master number 33 here on this card. So wow, we are coming into some kind of self-mastery. We are bringing the past into the present. We are looking at, like I said, what needs to be healed within us? What do we need to let go of? What have we been holding on to? How are we hindering our creativity? How are we hindering our inner child, which is our ego? And how are we self-censoring? And how are we not living in alignment with our authenticity? Because none of this is going to fly in the new timeline, which we are in. We're in it. We did shift at the new moon in Aquarius, but just because we've shifted, that doesn't mean there's this like cutoff point or this hard line of delineation between the old world and the new world. No, they're kind of overlapping. It's more fluid and blurry, kind of that Neptune energy. So as we move into this new timeline, we need to let go of all this old stuff that isn't serving us anymore. And that's where the South Node really comes in. And again, Ceres, right? Ceres conjunct the sun. Harvest. What do I need to keep? What is nourishing my soul? And what was helpful and helped me get to this point, but I need to let go of it now. Okay. So, and I'm sorry, you guys, if you hear my dogs bark, they are with me. Bless their little hearts. Um, Anyway, just wanted to let you know if you hear background noises. Okay, so then we have our tarot cards here. We have the Queen of Swords, we have Temperance, and then we have the Queen of Pentacles. Wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? Two queens that are kind of facing each other, and we have Temperance in the middle of them. So I think that the Queen of Swords is really, again, signifying those higher truths and speaking our truth and seeing things really clearly. She's really like a visionary and she's able to see things super clearly. And then we have the Queen of Pentacles, which again reminds me of that Taurus energy. Like, what do I need to feel safe and secure? And the Queen of Pentacles is very generous, but she's generous from a place of security. Like she's secure in herself first. And then from that place, she kind of gives forward. You have to fill your own cup first, right? And so these things are kind of coming into illumination for us. How are we balanced in these things? How are we imbalanced? What needs to change? How can we come more into alignment with ourselves? And here we have Temperance in the middle. And Temperance, yeah, it's all about alchemy. It's all about balancing the two different opposing sides of ourselves. And so through these energies, we are coming into balance. But there's going to be some kind of deep healing, deep emotional release, and profound clarity at the time of this full moon. So, okay, let's see. Let me go ahead and take that away. Nope, there we go. Again, I'm still kind of figuring this stuff out, guys. There we go. I'm in the middle again. Hey. So, anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope that this full moon serves you well. Remember, with any full moon, it can be emotional, so give yourself space to feel, to heal, to release. And really, this is about being very present with yourself. It is very much about being present with yourself at the time of this full moon, really feeling into yourself, looking at all the themes we talked about. But, you know, you don't even have to worry about it because your higher self will guide you through it. You will be taken into the flow. You will know exactly what to do. And all you have to do is surrender to it. So, anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, please like and subscribe if that feels right to you. You can find me in all the aforementioned places that I talked about at the beginning of this video. And I hope that you are all well. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later. Bye.